Welcome to the Duke Trap Studios, home of the Keystone Experience. Brought to you by Creek Archery. Find your passion, then hunt it down. Hillview Motors, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Remember, Hillview has it. What's going on, everybody? Hey, we got a special guest with us this evening. We got Bryan Hale from ELK County Outfitters. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Rob. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, we need to have needed to get a guide on and let us know what we got to do and how we got to do to get a PA elk. But what I want to do is start from your beginning, your background. How did you get involved in hunting? Who got you started?
Yep.
So
10-4. So, really kind of the classic Pennsylvania hunter history with myself. Been hunting ever since I was 12. My dad was, got me into it. He was a big hunter, as a child. He grew up hunting with his brothers and his father, my grandfather. And, my dad was also a member of a hunting camp that he had. He started a hunting camp with some of his college buddies. Way back in when, boy, I should know this and I don't now offhand, but way back when, like a dozen college buddies pulled their money together and bought some property up in upstate Pennsylvania. I'm up in Tioga County, and crazy college kids. I don't know how in the world they did it back then. I guess everybody says times were different then, because I can't even fathom trying to figure that how to do that now,
no.
as college kids. But they started out with a group of their college buddies, and most of them were from downstate Pennsylvania. There was a couple guys that were from up in the northern part, but most of them were college buddies from downstate. And eventually it whittled down to pretty much like 4 or 5 turned about to be the main guys. They bought the other guys out as they drifted off. And I went to hunting camp a lot with my dad. And then eventually, and that was when we lived downstate. And actually, we ended up moving upstate up to Tioga County. My dad is a forester, a private consulting forester. He owns Hale Forestry Company out of Westfield, Pennsylvania. So that's on the western edge of Tioga County, right on the border of Potter. We moved up there when I was in not kindergarten, second or third grade, something like that. And I pretty much grew up, up north, hunting and fishing and everything with him. And then, we would still do the hunting camp thing when all his buddies would come. Even though hunting camp was close for us, it was far for a bunch of the other guys. And, just grew up in that camp culture. And then also the convenience of just living in the area in Tioga County. Lots of access to big public pieces. Was fortunate enough to have some private accesses at different places. My father, being a forester, he knew a lot of people and knows a lot of people, has a lot of private land contacts. And growing up, that was kind of how I started. He got us, me and my brother, both into pretty much all the normal stuff, the hunting, the fishing, trapping a little bit, not so much. We got into trapping a little bit on our own, later on. But came up through like that on my own with him. And back in 2007, I had a buddy of mine that drew an elk tag through the regular lottery. And at that time, I lived back downstate, actually, just a little bit north of Harrisburg, a little town called Duncannon, just up the river from Harrisburg. And he drew this elk tag, and his elk tag actually was in the area that my grandfather had a hunting camp and was in a membership camp. So, and I had been to that hunting camp with my grandfather a couple times, but I did most of my growing up at my dad's camp, like I had said. And that 2007 experience with my buddy that drew the elk tag, he hunted on his own. Since we had the hunting camp and the access there, we stayed on our own, stayed there at camp, did all our own scouting and everything. And I had, just as a typical, growing up Pennsylvania hunter, back in my early, in the early days, it was before social media, so it was magazines, Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, Peterson's, Eastman's, those sort of things. And you would always kind of read and then kind of look longingly at the mountains for Western stuff, Western experiences, and elk and stuff, And I knew that there was elk in Pennsylvania, prior to this 2007 thing, but I never really had paid it much mind or even much interest. And then in 2007, when my buddy drew the tag, he, of course, had the chance and the opportunity. I said, "Hey, I got a family camp up there, my grandfather's camp. I'm sure we could probably work something out to stay there for the hunt, and then also use it kind of like scouting home base." So we talked with my grandfather and the membership, and yeah, it was fine. We used the camp and hunted out of it. And that experience, so his tag at that time was in November. He had a November tag, which at that time there was only one season. Now we have 3 seasons, archery, general, and late. But at that time he only had, there was only one season. But we started scouting almost like immediately after he was awarded the tag. So, I mean, at that time it was August, back then. So September, pretty much like every week in September through October, and then right up to the hunt, we were up scouting, putting out cameras and hiking and looking and familiarizing with the area. And I just remember getting bit by the bug so bad, hearing and seeing the elk and hearing the elk bugle. And his tag was for, I don't really want to, it was for an area that was very far away from Benezet. So very much removed from the touristy kind of elk center. And I remember being out in the boonies in the middle of nowhere, on big pieces of public ground. And here's these monsters. I mean, these bulls and these cows, and they're just doing their thing and carrying on. I was totally, bitten by the bug, so to speak. So, and shot a great bull, big bull, on the very first day, right at daylight. I mean, we had the bull patterned. We saw him the night before. We knew we'd be there at daylight, and we snuck in. And boy, you can see the shadows and hear the antlers clanking, the cows chirping, and everything, and waiting for time, waiting for daylight, waiting for time, and finally it all lined up. He got his shot, and he killed a great bull. And throughout that whole scouting process and the time leading up to the hunt, we kept running into a couple of the same guides, I should say, that worked for Elk County Outfitters. At that time, Elk County Outfitters was owned by Jack Manick Jr. And Jack had actually also reached out to my buddy, offering guiding services for his hunt. Now, like I had said, my buddy, he wanted to hunt DIY and hunt it on his own. But Jack had always stayed in touch with him, throughout the scouting process. And they had kind of a deal worked out that if I want to straighten that up a little bit. If we weren't having any luck by the middle of the week, he was going to get a hold of Jack and see if he could come on board and have Jack and his crew help him out. So throughout our whole scouting process, almost every weekend, we would run into either Jack himself or some of his other guides, and then of course went through the hunt. We didn't need Jack's services as him and my buddy had worked out. But I continued to stay in touch with Jack after that. So like I said, I was just totally bitten by the elk bug. The following fall and rut, I was back up at my grandfather's camp almost every weekend on my own. I was out running trail cameras myself, specifically trying to get bulls, wallow cameras, food plots, all that kind of stuff. I was out with my own video camera and point and shoot camera, taking pictures and videoing and just trying to get in the mix, and it just, I just got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it, every year. And for a season or two thereafter, 2007, after my buddy had his tag, like I said, I would still keep running into Jack, of course, because they're doing the same thing. They're out guiding and looking, and even in the off season, they're still out looking, not guiding, but scouting, running cameras. So I remember I ran into Jack one morning. I forget where we even were, but on the side of the road, like through the truck window, we're talking, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come over to camp for dinner tonight, and let's talk a little bit?" And I wasn't exactly really sure what he meant, but he was a friendly guy, and I'd seen him often enough. I was like, well, yeah, I'll go over and have dinner and have a couple beers or something. And I went to dinner that night with Jack, and I don't forget, he had 4 or 5 of the guys that were there. They were just hanging out in that evening, and he asked me if I at that time, if I wanted to help guide, and this was in 2009, I think. I think this was 2 years later. And as much as I wanted to, I couldn't. My work schedule just wasn't gonna jive. So you know, but I just continued to keep that relationship with Jack. I was showing him, my pictures and videos and my trail camera stuff and everything, and he was interested and realized that I was, putting quite a bit of effort in. And it took a couple years later. So it was like essentially it was like a standing invite. Hey, whenever you want to get involved more, let me know. So we'd like to have you. So it took a couple years for my work schedule to actually line up to where I could have time off, and actually ended up getting laid off. So I'm an electrician by trade, work out of IBW Local 143 out of Harrisburg, and just so happened that a job finished up that I was on, and I took a layoff, and it was looking like I was going to have a couple weeks till I was going to get a call back for some other work that was coming up. I was like, boy, this is perfect timing. So lo and behold, I called Jack up, and and the rest is history, so they say. And I've gone about as far down the rabbit hole of Pennsylvania elk as you can get. Way back at that time of all what I was just saying, that was when we lived down in Duncannon. I currently now live in Frenchville, Pennsylvania, which is it's up around Carthus. It's in elk hunt zone 12, what's currently elk hunt zone 12. I moved my whole family up here. Pretty much, I pulled up roots, and we bought a house and some property, and just it was one of them things where the stars aligned. Everything was perfect. And my wife was on board. She's a very outdoorsy person herself. She likes hunting and fishing to an extent herself. Doesn't mind being out in the country, out in the boondocks. And everything just ended up falling in line and working perfect. We've been here for 10 or 11 years. I think we're going into our 11th summer now here up in Frenchville. And ever since that original time of guiding for Jack, I've been guiding with him or for him since. And I got more and more involved with him as the years went, and more into not only just the guiding and the hunting portion, but running the business aspect, and trying to talk to clients and help meet clients and help try to run social media. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that really most people probably wouldn't even really think. Boy, just the government red tape alone in the permitting process, that's just mind blowing anymore anyways, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole there. But so unfortunately in 2021, Jack Manick Jr. passed away unexpectedly, and kind of caught us all by surprise. And his widow and his parents, he was an only child, his widow and his parents asked me if I would take over Elk County Outfitters. Of course, and just to preface all of this too, like elk guiding in Pennsylvania, nobody makes a living on it. It is purely a thing of passion, of love. There's no group out there that in the PA elk scene that makes a living doing elk guiding stuff. So I talked with my wife a little bit about it. I mean, I was already elbow deep in everything, and knew a lot of the ins and outs of it just from helping him over the last couple years. And I agreed. I picked up, and it was one of those things too. I know Jack was very, very passionate about this. It was outside of his daughter. This elk stuff was his whole world. It was his life, and it just didn't seem right for that to just stop, leave, cease to exist, just because Jack wasn't with us anymore. Essentially, it's his legacy. I mean, it really is. He started it. He started Elk County Outfitters in 2002, which would be the second year of the modern day elk hunt. The first year in 2001, he missed the elk drawing. He was up in a tree archery deer hunting. It was weird how they did it that first year. He missed the drawing. Didn't have any names or didn't know anything about it. And the second year, 2002, he jumped in and made a decision to um, follow with the list and then book some clients. And he did all to the time of his passing in 2021, where I stepped in and took things over. And we haven't really missed a beat. I mean, there's always some changes that happen, when kind of a new, I don't want to say regime, but whenever there's a new guy that comes in charge, I mix things up. I changed things a little bit, made some tweaks here and there, but nothing major. We really haven't skipped a beat. We book over 20 clients a year between the 3 seasons. I try to my method or my mantra has never been take them all, take them all, take them all, take them all, because somewhere down the road that's gonna burn you. Somebody's gonna have an experience that's bad, and I think too highly of the Pennsylvania elk hunt, of the winner of these tags, and of Elk County Outfitters in our name to take a chance at all, roll a dice for somebody to not have a good experience. So we usually do between 5 to 10 archery hunters, usually around 15-20 general season hunters, and like 10ish or so late season hunters. I mean, we're flexible either way a little bit. I have 48 licensed guides that work for me, so we're permitted through the Game Commission. I have 48 folks. Now, that doesn't mean that all 48 guides are there for every season. Some guys only like the guide archery season. Some guys only do late season. Some guys can do all three. It's just kind of all a variation of different things. Everybody's schedule's different. Everybody's personality is a little bit different. I do my best. When we're talking with clients and booking clients, in the back of my mind, I'm always internally moving things around and trying to think, all right, hey, this guy is a good match for this guy, for our guide here. They have a good similar personality, so that's a big part of trying, of being successful too, is making sure that your guides match up as best as possible, with your clients. You're not just, take them all attitude, and then you have I've heard of other folks, I've heard of experiences from other folks in the past where there'll be 2 or 3 hunters with one guide. I've heard other folks, that's not what we do, but I've heard other stories after the fact, and sometimes it's, well, that's not what they signed on for, they didn't know it was going to be like that. And sometimes that comes from that book 'em all, that overbook mentality, that can definitely bite you in the butt. Not that we've never ever hunted 2 guys together, but it would have been 2 hunters with 2 guides as well, and it would be something that would be talked about and discussed ahead of time. There has been a couple instances where we've taken hunters together, but it's never been like a 2 or 3 hunter on one guide situation with us. That's I don't like to go down that route. I like to have everybody matched up with a guide, somebody that's knowledgeable, and try to get that personality thing matched up as best as we can do. So when I took over, like I said, in 2021, leads us to present here. We just came off of a heck of a year for us. We unfortunately, I can't say we were 100% success, but we were 100% opportunity last year. We unfortunately, in the late season, we had a fella that had a bull tag for zone 13. He ended up missing on the last day. But he was an older gentleman, had some pretty significant mobility issues, had a lot of health issues. We had gone the route for disabled hunting permits for him from the Game Commission and through the DCNR, to try to help improve access for him and to actually be able to shoot from a vehicle, given his physical limitations. Um, but so he was our one fella that unfortunately, did not fill his tag. But I'll tell you, he had a smile on his face right to the very end. He was a trooper, given all that he had been through health wise. He was just excited and happy and glad to even get to go to elk camp, and to be there. And we had a great time with him. It was fun. You can learn a lot about yourself even by sometimes watching other people, and seeing and other people's adversity and seeing how they handle it and overcome it. And it makes you just kind of think, boy, my sore knee, that really ain't nothing, or boy, my back, that really ain't nothing. This guy's out here with, significant more issues, and yet he's got a smile on his face and he's pushing through it and he's trudging through. And it was definitely an emotional hunt. I got involved at the end. He had a couple guides that were working for him, and as other guides freed up in other zones, other clients, then we kind of all drop back and go in and help the guys that are still hunting. So there at the end, when we were hunting with Ken, I think there was, boy, there was 7 or 8 guides, that were working for him while he was sitting here hunting. There was 6 or 7 other dudes in other places checking cameras. We had snow, so we were looking for tracks, walking, if we would find tracks, walking tracks out, see if they were cows or what. And it was big woods area. There wasn't easy access in zone 13 where he had his tag, which is unfortunate, given his mobility issues. That's probably one of the few rough ones for access, for guys that kind of have limited mobility issues. But otherwise, other than Ken, we had 100% opportunity. We killed 2 whopper bulls in archery season last year. We killed a gross 456 bull in zone 10 with archery equipment. It had a 37-inch drop time, Rob. Legit.
That
37 inches of drop time. It's legit. Like, I'm not fibbing. The score sheet's there. It shows it.
that's
It's
like the what is it, the Gila Mountains? That's the class of bull there.
Oh yeah, so that's the big Indian reservation you're talking about. It's down in New
Yeah,
Mexico. Yeah.
I mean, them bulls are pulling out of there are 450 and up.
Oh yeah, I mean, 450 is that's a phenomenal number anywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, monstrous bull. And we also killed a big bull with archery equipment in zone 12. It was a 413 gross bull.
Wow.
Just awesome animals. I mean, hunting elk during the rut when they're bugling is just, there's nothing like it. I mean, when they're I'm a turkey hunter. I know you're a turkey hunter, and a lot of people hunting elk during the rut. It's turkey hunting on steroids. It's not a 20-pound gobbler that's coming looking for you. It's an 800-pound bull, and his eyes are big, and his nose is, his nostrils are flaring, and he's drooling and spitting, and he's pissing on himself. I mean, when he's bugling, and just, oh man. He wants to fight you or love you, one or the other,
right.
when they're coming in. And, there's nothing quite like archery hunting during the rut, for elk. Then into the general season, we killed a gross 404 bull in zone 13, in the general season. And we killed some other real nice, good, solid bulls. And then into the late season, same thing. We just had that one fella, that unfortunately was empty. We had a couple real big bulls get away on us, in the late season. Anybody, I say, I mean, people don't believe and they scoff, but anybody that tells you Pennsylvania elk hunting is easy, there's certain times, there's certain areas, there's certain places. No way. You got to hunt and you got to get a little bit lucky every now and then, you know. So we had two specific, I know, big bulls that we were actually hunting and we had committed to, and they slipped away on us a couple times. We had some sightings, and then you start getting into Wednesday, Thursday, middle of the hunt. Sometimes the clients are like, "Hey, we did it. We tried for 2, 3, 4 days. Let's drop back to plan B, C, D, what have you, and go from there." And uh, so we just had the one fella in the late season that was empty, but there's still a bunch of big bulls that made it through for sure.
So
For sure.
when you're getting into bulls that big, what is the age range for a bull that big?
Well, that's funny you say that. So unbelievably, this 456 bull that I was saying about in
Mm-hmm.
zone 10, 5 years old, it came back, the age certificate. So
Wow.
just like with bears, the game commission, they pull a tooth just like at bear check stations, and they send it away for dental cementation. Essentially, they cut it in half, and count the rings just like you would on a tree. So that bull was 5 years old. And when the hunter guy sent me a text message, he said, "Hey, I got my age certificate back." He was 5. I immediately called him. I was like, "Are you reading that right? Come on." And he said, "Yeah, it says 5." Well, then I immediately followed up with the elk biologist because I was like, "Man, there ain't no way. Like this does not seem right." And so that work is performed by a third party vendor, another lab. The game commission doesn't do it themselves. So he went back to the lab folks, and because he same thing, he didn't think that seemed right either. Those big mature bulls in that 400-inch range, they're generally in that 8, 9, 10 plus year window, and now here we just killed a 456-inch bull that was 5 years old. I mean, I think about it now, I want to puke. I mean, what in the world, if that bull, imagine if we would have got that bull up into that 10-year window, I mean,
Yeah.
just who knows what he would have been, what he would have done. But never in a million years would we have thought that elk was that bull was that young, 5 years old. And we have 3 years worth of video and stuff of that bull. Like we have not, and he's been pretty substantial, pretty big all along. Now he made a big jump last year when he threw that big drop tine. um but yeah, we just was blown away to find out and that bull was only 5 years old. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I watched the elk cam, and I've seen some hammers on
Yeah,
there, and I mean, I could only imagine seeing something that big in the wild.
yeah. And then same, that 404 bull that we killed in the general season. That bull was not, or 10. That bull was 10. So just like those ages make sense,
Yeah,
given the rack and antler size. But now conversely, just because they're that old doesn't mean they're going to be that big. We've killed other elk that are in that 8, 9, 10-year-old window that are only four. I say only, I mean only 350 bulls. Some of them aren't even that big. Just like whitetails, not every buck is destined to be a booner. Just like elk, I mean, not every buck or every bull is destined, to be a 400-inch bull. Um, Genetics, that's a big part of it. Food around here, I mean, we have a smorgasbord as far as like elk diet's concerned. Our elk essentially want for nothing here. Our winters are pretty mild. There's lots of food sources between the grass, the tree browse, the acorns, the hard mass, the soft mass, that sort of stuff. We don't. There's no natural predator other than coyotes and bears. In the very first couple days of a calf being born, pretty much, grown adult elk don't have any natural enemies other than us or disease. So our bulls get big partly because they live a fairly stress-free lifestyle other than the stresses of the rut, comparative to the western stuff,
no,
where they have bears and or grizzly bears and wolves and lions, so they're always they're always on edge, they're always leery, they're always kind of real tense. And that combined with harsh western winters, drought conditions in the summertime, that uh, our elk don't experience that at all.
so how do I want to say it? Our bulls are are they are they a subspecies of like the Roosevelt or
Nope, nope. So we have right here, right now in the state, we have Rocky Mountain elk.
okay,
So they are of the Rocky Mountain subspecies.
okay,
So as far as elk go, there is the Rocky Mountain elk subspecies. There is the Thule elk species, which is limited to California, and then there's the Roosevelt elk, which is like Pacific Northwest and up into some of Canada. Um, what we originally had here in on the East Coast was the eastern elk. That was its own subspecies, just like Rocky Mountain Thule and
okay,
Roosevelt. A much larger bodied animal, um, from what scientists, archaeologists. I mean they've been extinct and long gone. They've been gone since the 1800s. Um, uh, that was a different subspecies. When they went extinct, and they were market hunted essentially to extinction, in the East. 1913, I believe, was when the Game Commission originally restocked elk here in Pennsylvania. So they collaborated with Yellowstone National Park and out in Jackson Hole, out in Wyoming, and I think over the course of 4 years, I think it was 1913 and 1917, something like that. I believe 150 elk. That number seems a little low. It might be a little bit more than that. 150 elk were originally trapped and transferred. They brought them by train car from out west, here to Pennsylvania, and those were Rocky Mountain elk subspecies. So that's what we have here now, and essentially, it's a really tight genetic bottleneck. Every elk in Pennsylvania walking right now is direct descendant from those original, 150 transplanted elk. Everything is whether we just got lucky that the couple elk that they brought had that non-typical genetics, because that's a very common thing with our elk, especially when we get our big older bulls in that 8, 9, 10 plus year window. We get some crazy antler configurations. We get the drop tines. We get the real super heavy mass and palmation, and we get splits, and we get splits on splits. A lot of stuff, a lot of antler configurations and characteristics that you do not see in the Western populations. Definitely don't see them as frequent, as they do here. There's some conjecture out there about how is it inbreeding that's causing the real goofy antler configurations, on our elk here, given that they are Rocky Mountain elk fitter, Rocky Mountain subspecies. A big, clean, slick 6x6, in a big mature animal in that 8, 9, 10-year-old window. It's not a common thing here. There's usually a split or a drop or a web somewhere, for whatever reason. That's our elk have some unique characteristics, and it's become that's kind of what's driven some of the awe, with our elk, is just how wild and crazy some of our racks get. We killed a bull a couple years ago. It was a 10x11. And legit, they're not just little bumps. There was legit 10 and 11 points. It's just wild. Whenever you get up into that higher age class, who knows what you're going to see. They really grow. They grow some funky stuff. Even when they're younger too, you can still see some young bulls that are really funky. And you're like, oh man, I hope that guy gets another 5, 6 years on it. Let's see what he does.
So,
Yeah.
I put in for the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I pick my zone. How many? What are you allowed to pick? 2, 3 zones? How does
So the way the application works now, and I say it now, and I preface now because it is going to be changing.
We talked about that the other day, did we not?
Yes. So there's some pretty significant changes that are coming. I'm sorry. There's some pretty significant changes that were already made for next year, 2026. And there's some more still proposed in the background that they're working on. But as it sits right now, we'll just talk about like how it exists right now.
Right.
Is you can go online or you can go to any point of sale and apply for your Pennsylvania elk tag or elk license. You do not currently have to even have a Pennsylvania hunting license to apply for this elk tag. That is something that has changed for next year, 2026, but not this year. It is the same it is right now. So let's just say right now you're going to go apply for your very first time. You go online, you go into your pa.hunt.fish app, and you log into your account. You're required to pick at least one, and you can pick up to 5 zones. Then that would be per season. So there's an archery season in September, there's a general season in the beginning of November, and there's a late season right in January.
So 15 total?
Ultimately, you could do 15 total zone choices between the 3 seasons. Yes.
Okay.
So let's just say archery season. You can pick. You have to pick at least one. You can pick up to 5.
Okay.
Same with the general. You have to pick at least one, and then you can pick up to 5, and also for the late. So when you go in, you pick your choice, your zone choices, and then you're going to have the next thing that's going to come up is going to be what's called the fallback option, which essentially means no preference. So yes, I chose, the computer forces you to choose, but if ultimately you do not care, you'll take a tag, any tag in any zone, then you would want to click the fallback.
Okay.
So you go through that and do that for whatever choice you can apply for. 1 season, 2 seasons, all 3 seasons. Whichever you would want, depending on, some guys aren't archery hunters, so they wouldn't apply for archery hunting. Some guys already know, hey, I have another hunting trip planned that time. I don't have availability. So that's where a bonus point only option comes in. So when you log in, like we said, and you go to your ELK application, there is a point at the beginning where you can pick bonus point only. So let's just say that you're going hunting in Colorado in September, and the dates overlap with our Pennsylvania elk season. You don't want to actually be in the drawing and take the chance of drawing a PA tag that would conflict with your Colorado tag. But you still want the benefit of gaining a bonus point.
Right.
So you, instead of applying for the drawing, you can click the box to apply for point only. So then the following year, when you go to apply again and you do not have a conflict, you have the previous year's point rolled over for you. So that's a big thing. I know we talk to a lot of folks. It never fails. Every year we have guys that have limited time to hunt because they have a conflict with something. I always say to guys, well, why didn't you just pick bonus only? If you knew you had a family trip scheduled somewhere, boy, I can only hunt the first 2 days of the season, then I got to go to the beach, or the last 2 days of the season because I'm at the beach at the beginning, whatever the circumstance may be, or I have knee surgery, or I'm gonna have my shoulder done or something, apply for the bonus point only. Don't jam yourself up like that and cut yourself short somewhere. I mean, every year we have folks that can only hunt a couple days for one reason or the other. And when you think it's not going to happen, it'll happen. So, I mean, it's an inside joke with us a little bit, is like the surest way to guarantee you'll draw an elk tag is to double book yourself.
Yeah.
Book another trip somewhere else so you have a conflict, and it'll force you into it. Yeah. So when you apply, you apply for your zones, whichever you would choose, at least one, up to 5. And then you just sit back and cross your fingers and toes and sell your firstborn and hope that your name is called.
All right. Now I'm lucky I got drawed.
Yep.
I contact you.
You'll contact us, or we'll even contact you. So we, when I say we, Elk County Outfitters, me and a bunch of the guys, we attend the live drawing up at the Elk Visitor Center during the Elk Expo. And we videotape, we take pictures. It's projected up on a big screen, and essentially it's just a computer program. They click a button, and the names come up. And the Game Commission, us as an outfitter, the Game Commission does not provide us with any information at all as far as the lucky winners. So what town are you from?
I'm in Greensburg.
Gotcha. So what you would see, it would say R. Warwick, Greensburg, PA. That's all we would know. I don't know if your name's Rob, Richie, could be Rachel, could be
Right.
Rob. I don't know if it's a guy, a girl, whatever. So we have to do a bunch of sleuthing and creeping and on our own, trying to find these lucky winners. Luckily, we've been around for so long, since 2002, like I said, and we cast a pretty wide net, fortunately, with our own guides being from all over, and then past clients. A lot of times, quite a majority of the folks that get drawn, we have some type of connection back to them already somewhere, whether it's a word of mouth thing or a relative, something like that. But so you would get drawn. Let's just say we can't find any. We don't have any way. We can't find you. Well, for doing our own detective work. You, as a winner, will be provided a packet from the game commission. Initially, there'll be a thank you or a congratulations letter. This is what you drew. These are your next steps through the game commission, and then the game commission lists the legal licensed elk guide outfitters that are out there. Right. So I think there's like five or six licensed on the up and up elk outfitters that operate in Pennsylvania. So you, as a winner, will get this envelope in the mail a couple days, a week or so after the drawing. If you have not had any contact with anybody by then, that's an avenue for you because the elk outfitters are listed there. A lot of times, folks immediately. Well, like I said, there's some type of connection back. Somebody knows somebody whose brother's, cousin hunted with us, or knows somebody directly, something like that. And then it is just total chaos on the phone for a week straight. I mean, it is crazy trying to keep everything organized and straight. I mean, I'll be on the phone and I'll get 4 voicemails while I'm on the phone with one person, and in the hours immediately after the drawing, and then even through that weekend and into the next week. So it is all hands on deck for us, returning phone calls and getting information for folks. What we do then, so let's say you drew the tag and we talk pretty directly, after the drawing. Congratulations, hell yeah, all that kind of stuff. Explain to you who we are, where we're at. I get all your information, mailing address, email address, all that kind of stuff. And then, we have a brochure, a real nice, glossy, printed out, professional type brochure. I'll send you a packet in the mail then that'll have our brochure. There's usually something in there about the zone that you drew, and, some of our past successes in the zone, things like that. There's usually copies of contracts in there, insurance, like the business aspect of this. I mean, we deal with contracts, we have insurance waivers. It's unfortunate. It's just the business aspect of this. I wish we could all just go out and hunt elk and then have a beer around the fire, when we get done at night. But the business end of it, we have to dot the I's and cross the T's.
Right.
So, we work through contracts, and, we also we like to encourage the folks, that draw the tags, to come up and meet us too. Face to face. If they want to book over the phone right away, well, heck yeah, I mean, we can take credit card payment, Venmo payment, any of that kind of stuff, over the phone. But a lot of times, we like folks to come up and meet us. Believe it or not, it's an interview for us as much as it is for you too. And I have been fortunate that I haven't had to do this, but I know Jack has, and I've seen him, tell folks, no, I don't think this is going to be a good fit, with Elk County Outfitters. It only takes one jerk in camp to mess up an entire camp and ruin multiple people's hunts. So, I know Jack did, and myself too. I mean, we're interviewing the winners as much as they're interviewing us. And, if you can get a vibe of somebody that's just gonna be a handful, as hard as it is to say, sometimes that's the best thing is like, hey, I don't think that it's not gonna be a good fit for us. Sorry, but we're not gonna be able to help you out. Doesn't happen very often. Like I said, since I've been at the helm, I haven't had to do that, but it's always in the back of my mind. I know I watched Jack do it one time in the past, and it was, I mean, there's so few of the winners as it is. You surely don't want to be turning people away.
Right.
But like I said, man, one bad apple and it can ruin a whole bunch. And I think too highly of the experience of a Pennsylvania elk hunter and the once in a lifetime aspect of it. And it should be a fun, good, happy time. We don't want but we wouldn't want some poison pill that would bring down a whole camp. So we would encourage you to come up. Like I said, we played a little bit different. So, and I say a little bit differently. I've been burned in the past from this before. So, of course, let's just use that as an example. Rob, you drew a zone 12 archery bull tag. That's about freaking as primo as it gets, right? I mean, it's an awesome tag. So I don't know you from Adam. We have a conversation on the phone. You say, hey, I'm going to come up next weekend. I want to meet up with you. So, we'll set up a meetup time. I'll meet with you. I'll have the pamphlet for you. I'll show you all of our harvests and everything we've had over the years in Zone 12. Some guys are really quick and eager to start sharing trail camera pictures, videos and stuff of, bulls that are out there and walking. I've been burnt before by, essentially like a poker player, right? It's a shame to think of it like that, but you don't want to lay all your cards out on the table right away. You got a really big bull that you're thinking that you want to target and hunt. Plus, first of all, it's hunting, right?
Right.
You never know. And anybody that's gonna try to put this in your face and say, hey, this is the bull we're gonna hunt. Man, there's probably a good possibility, but that can be quite a stretch to make. So I know in the past I have tried to do that. I've tried to, wow the folks with pictures and videos. Hey, these are our bulls. I mean, and this is legit. These are things that are walking right now, and then to turn around and, they go hunt with another outfit or they go hunt on their own DIY. And now you're thinking, crap, I just did all that scouting and all that homework, and I was showing these guys all these bulls that are out there, and now I just essentially showed my hand. I did homework for somebody else.
Right.
Now, I struggle with that a little bit internally, as a hunter and as a sportsman, and always wanting to help and do everything I can. But as a business owner, at the same time, like, I worked for this. Like I was the one that was out beating up my truck on the back roads at 4 or 5 in the morning, hiking into these places, or running trail cameras, gathering all this intel. So me personally, and a lot of our guys, I like to let our track record and our past successes in harvest speak for us. I don't need to go blowing smoke or showing you a bunch of live stuff. Now you commit and we have a deal and we have a signed contract. Oh, we'll blow your phone up. We'll be your you won't know what you won't be able to scroll fast enough. And at that time it's game on. Now, conversely, I would, and I know the guys will help any DIY hunter there is out there, especially if we do not have a client, in the zone that would be like a competing tag,
Right.
Anybody that would reach out to, now I'm not going to send you an Onyx pin of where this wallow is or where this food plot or this bench that's loaded with acorns is, but I'm going to say, hey, have you checked out this area over here? Or have you been down this road and checked this out? Definitely guide and kind of point, as much as it can, being helpful, but I love nothing more, honestly, than to see successful DIY hunters, and especially DIY hunters that put the time and effort in. The guys that commit to it, like when they draw that tag. I mean, I've seen guys that are they're up immediately after the tag. We had a guy the other year. He actually ultimately ended up hunting and booking with us. He ran like 32 of his own trail cameras on top of ours, and he was a client of ours. and he just like he was into it that much and that excited, and there's been other DIY guys that are like that, and they'll have some of their buddies with them, and they're all helping, and you make it's a whole thing, with your hunting buddies, and to see those guys be successful is pretty awesome, because anybody that puts the effort into it can do a DIY elk hunt here in Pennsylvania, and you will get out of it what you put into it. Now, I mean that's almost a little bit cliche, and that seems like that's a lot of you hear that saying a lot, but it truly is. There's enough public ground in Pennsylvania elk range that you can fill an elk tag. In some of the zones, the public ground is better hunting than the private ground, and sometimes in different seasons, archery, late season, whatever, public ground's better than the private stuff. It's definitely doable as a DIY guy. But so now to back up, as a client, like I said, we would have you up, we'd like to meet. Same thing, like taking guys around the zone. I mean, a lot of guys, oh, hey, I want to take a ride in the zone. Well, am I going to go take you a bunch of places and show you this and that, and then you're going to go hunt on your own DIY? You're going to go, hunt with another outfitter maybe or something. I have no problem. I'll take you to some of our private ground and show you places that we hunt, on our private ground. But and I only say this because I've been burned by this. Like I know for a fact in the past I've shown guys things, and then they've taken that information and went elsewhere with it.
Right.
And it's and they probably didn't even do it purposefully. I'm sure it wasn't like a vindictive thing, but it was just like, man, I just did somebody else's homework for them,
Right.
So like it's sometimes, I don't know, hopefully it doesn't come off like being a jerk.
Nope. What it comes off as to me as you're like a mushroom hunter.
Well,
because I am not going to tell anybody. I don't care if it's my own relatives. I'm not going to tell you where the hell I find. My kids don't know where I mushroom hunt.
Well, that's funny. It's funny you say that. So I have two. They were teenage boys when we really got into the mushroom stuff, but we have some pretty killer morel spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've both had a couple girlfriends here and there through the way, and I've grabbed each of them by the collar and told them, I don't care what you tell her, but don't you damn dare say where these morel spots are.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't take her, you
we're
don't show her.
We're kind of right on the cusp. We're on the cusp for that right here. Our morels we're usually late April, beginning of May is when our stuff pops. So we're going to be getting going on that soon.
I found a few so far, nothing crazy. Yeah. But I also haven't really been out so far this year either.
Yeah.
Yep. That thing they call a job has been getting in the way lately.
The JOB, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you say there's three seasons.
Yeah.
There's an archery season, a regular season, which means you can hunt rifle.
Yeah. So the only season that is weapon specific would be that September rut season, archery. That's archery equipment only.
Okay.
So PA, crossbow, vertical bow.
Okay.
General season and late season, those are any weapon. But majority, 95% of the folks use regular center fire, high powered rifles for general and late season. It's a whole nother animal trying to archery hunt elk in the general and late season. It's totally different. Not that it can't be done, and it has been done, but you definitely are stacking the deck against you. And you might be prepared to make some concessions, if you're going to go that route. But guys have done it and they've been successful. So you draw the tag. We have some conversations. You come up to meet. You like everything you see. Something that's unique with us too is we don't operate Elk County Outfitters out of like one home base lodge. Right. So geographically, the way the elk range is spread out, from one end to the other, it's like it could be 2+ hours driving. A lot of curvy, windy backcountry roads. There's no good way to get anywhere fast. We've developed a pretty good system. We run multiple camps throughout the elk range during the seasons. And that by design is to try to keep our hunters and clients as close to their hunting zone as possible, right? Let just say hypothetically, we talked about zone 12 earlier. You drew a zone 12 tag. I live in Elks Hunt zone 12. I'm sitting in 12 right now. If you would draw a zone 4 tag from here, it's 45 minutes an hour. Same with zone 14, to get that, and that's just to get to the zone, let alone where you're going to hunt at within the zone, and then walk in or hike into wherever you're going to be, right? So um, instead of running one camp and having, somebody's fortunate to hunt right out the back door and somebody else has to get up 3 hours early because they got to drive and hike, we run multiple camps. So I have a camp as an example over in zone 4. I have a camp over in zone 14. And our guys that draw tags for those zones or adjacent zones, those guys stay in those places. So these are hunting camps and family camps, of the ECO gang, running water, electricity, the whole nine. I mean, yeah, they're hunting camps, but they could pretty much be houses. You could live in them. It's not your old potbelly wood stove and a bunk and an empty beer keg on the floor type hunting camp. They're pretty nice places. So we would when you would come up to visit too, a lot of times folks want to see their lodging. So we would make arrangements, and we would, if we would go take a ride, we could get you over, to see the lodging and where you would be staying at. Most everybody that comes brings at least one guest. So how our package deal, so our package includes the hunter and one guest at no charge. And then we charge a fee for any guest over that +1, and that covers food and lodging, for that person over the +1. I mean, we've had some guys come by themselves. We'd had guys that brought 8-10 buddies along, just because they want it to be, they have a group of hunting buddies and they do everything together, and this is just how it's going to be. It's going to be a whole big group event. So, knowing what we can know about that stuff ahead of time, that also drives our lodging situation too. We got to make sure we have room, right? So, I mean, a hunt without counting outfitters, you could expect to have either camp to yourself or maybe sharing it with 2, 3, maybe 4. Just depends on how the tags book, 4 other folks in camp. We might have 20 clients, but they're, between all the different camps we run, the other folks will be spread out, trying to keep them, close to their hunting areas. We can make certain accommodations, for folks. Some folks want to bring their wife or their girlfriends along, private rooms. So one of the camps is like bunk style. Essentially, there's a big bunk room, but most of the camps have individual like bedroom styles, and then they have bathrooms, running water, flush toilets, all that stuff. We can accommodate health issues. So we've had folks that have dietary concerns and issues, celiac, gluten issues, peanut issues, dairy, all that kind of stuff. As long as we know that stuff ahead of time and we communicate, we can handle that stuff easy. So you come up and see us. We look at some lodging. We'll show you a bunch of dead stuff. Things are looking good. You're just like, all right, yep, I'm good. We have a contract that we sign, and then you're pretty well involved. But what I like to do is pretty directly after a client books in, I like to try to get them in touch or in contact with their guide, whoever would be their guide. Now, it's not always an instant thing, because sometimes you're kind of playing. You can have multiple tags for the same zone. And a lot of it's personality wise, like I said earlier, and who knows what area is better. But I like to do that sooner than later, so those guides can start building a relationship with you as a hunter. They can start sharing scouting information with you. They can coordinate, if you would want to try to come back up and go along on a scouting mission with them, on a weekend or something. That I like to try to make that connection sooner than later. It doesn't always happen immediately, but sooner than later, and try to let the client and the hunters be as involved or as least involved, whatever their choice would be, with their hunt and how it progresses. And then from there, I mean, it's just a countdown till the day comes. And I tell everybody, once you draw that tag, don't you dare climb that ladder and clean them gutters, or don't get on that four wheeler and go ripping around. Keep all your legs and your fingers and your arms, keep everything attached and straight and working until after this hunt's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then should they come in like a day ahead of time, or
yeah. So how we work it, so archery season starts on a Saturday. Most guys come up, like a lot of guys take off work on Friday. So they come up sometime Friday, get settled into camp. We go, they'll go over with their guide, recent scouting reports. That evening they'll go out listening for bugles, looking for elk, whatever. The general season starts on a Monday. So we look for our clients to come in on a Saturday for then. That gives guys time to get into camp, get settled in, do some scouting themselves, or same thing, scouting with the guys, shoot a gun if they feel like they need to. For all three of the seasons, we do a Sunday picnic. So, of course, here in PA, we don't hunt on Sundays. Well, for the most part, we
Right.
don't hunt elk on Sundays. So, as an example, archery and the late season, like I said, they both start on a Saturday. So we hunt one day, and then boom, we're immediately taking a break on Sunday. So Sunday, we do a big picnic, and the same with the general starts on Monday. Sunday before is our down day. We'll run a big picnic for all three of the seasons. So, and that's our one chance to get all of our clients together. If we're running, let's just say we're running 4 camps for archery season, and they're scattered all about. Everybody will hunt that first day Saturday. Then Sunday, everybody will be together. We'll pick one of the camps depending upon the situation that we have, and we'll do a big cookout, and we'll have a big picnic, and all of the clients and all of their guests and all of our guides and everybody gets together for this big picnic. I stand up, do a little spiel, and congratulate everybody, and talk a little bit. But it's a great time for camaraderie, BSing, and it's crazy. It never fails. You'll have complete strangers, clients and guests of clients, and somehow they know each other, or they know somebody that knows each other, or
Right.
somebody's cousin is from this same town, and holy cow, I grew up and I played baseball with him, something like that. It's pretty neat to see that stuff flesh out, and it happens every year, and that's why I really like having that one chance to get everybody together and that camaraderie. It's nice being spread out and having everybody hunting close to their areas, and not have one big loud chaotic lodge where people are in and out all day, all night long, the day long. And it's nice having that little smaller scale operation, and having 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, it all depend on how the tags fall, in the camps. And then Sunday everybody gets together, and we socialize, and then after that, everybody would break back out and go back to their camps, and would go scouting that evening and prepare for the next day's hunt. Um, so that's essentially how we operate. That's how our operation goes. I think a couple of the other outfits are kind of like that. A couple of them aren't. I mean, everybody has their own little twist on it, but that's how we have found success, and that's the model that we've been sticking with, and has been doing good by us.
So we've done all that.
Yep.
Now we've actually got a bull or a
Oh,
cow
yeah.
on the ground.
Yep.
What is our process after that now?
Gotcha. So a lot depends on the weather and the temperature. So it's way different in September than it is in January in the late season, right? So we pretty much have to make a decision right away, especially in September, how we get what's our extraction method. If we're way back in somewhere, so I mentioned earlier that big 413 archery bull we killed in zone 12.
Yeah.
That was about 2.5 miles. It was on public ground. It was about 2.5 miles behind a locked gate. It was walk in only, right? And it was warm. And they shot it. They shot that bull later in the morning, right? So they didn't get him first thing. Later in the morning, they got him. They put the bat signal out. They got word out that a big bull was down. So what our guys opted to do there was actually quarter the elk, in the field. They had game bags, and then what we did was we rallied the troops and we went in with one of our big elk carts. So you've seen like the two-wheeled deer carts
Yep.
essentially, but we have a couple custom-made elk carts. They're big, beefy. They have bigger rubber tires on them. Dimensionally, they're much larger. And we get a lot of our elk out like that. You get even them really big, gnarly bulls. 5, 6 guys, can handle one of them on them carts, especially if you can get yourself to some kind of logging road or gated access road or something. You'll fight it to get it out of the woods to some kind of trail, but once you're on the trail, it's actually pretty smooth sailing. So that, like I said, that bull that I mentioned there, that big 413 bull back on the public ground, the guys opted to quarter that up because it was warm. We went in with the empty elk cart, and I think they had, so it was 2 guides and the hunter, and his sister was along for the hunt. And then we ended up rolling in there, I think, with 6 more dudes and the elk cart. So we hoofed it in back with the empty elk cart. Congratulations, high fives, hugs, and everything. Till we got there, the bull had been quartered and was in the game bags, and we just flopped them suckers in the cart and threw everybody's packs and everything in there, and then we got the bull out like that. Um, you know, not too often do we actually quarter like that. There are occasions, and there's some of the guides that they prefer it. They like to do that. So that's one of the methods. The other one is just straight, like I said, with that cart, that elk cart. Um, you you get 4 or 5 guys together, 6 guys with them big bulls. You get them, you get them on that cart and get them balanced straight. You can make quick work of them like that. Um, Also, there's a fella that does horse logging by trade. He's local here to me in Frenchville. And during elk seasons, he makes himself available to actually pull the elk out whole with his big logging horses.
Okay.
So that's a neat and unique thing also. And sometimes the hunter specifically ask for that or want to do that, and that's all. Extraction is all included in our price for us. The horse guy, there is a fee associated with him, but we take care of that on our end if we go the horse route. So he can show up with his big horse, and he has a sled, a scoot, he calls it. He has a scoot that's rigged up and it drags behind the big horse. You get the elk in that scoot and lashed down and tied down, and he just flips his reins and out you go, and he walks that thing right out. So then at that point, the elk is out. Now, again, still depending on the temperatures, we're either going to get him to the processor immediately. So we're not set up to do our own butchering or processing as
Okay.
far as Elk County Outfitters, and especially being spread out in different camps. We work with there's 2 local reputable butcher shops in the elk range that we use. We send a lot of folks to them. In the past, we can do this if necessary, but generally we like to try to get them to the butcher shops or the folks get them home immediately. But we can on occasion get the animal hung and get it skinned and quartered. But we're not going to be able to break the meat down totally for folks. We can help them. Like some guys want to butcher themselves, right? They want to take it home and butcher themselves, or they want to use their own butcher at home. But in September, it's too freaking hot,
Right.
So you can't let the hide on that thing. So in the past, we can hang them and skin them and quarter them, just get them broken down. Then usually, like the next day, the client would head home and then continue the processing on their own at home or to their own butcher shop, what have you. Now in November and in January, where temperatures are way more, generally speaking, are way more conducive to meat handling. In the past we've shoved them full of ice. If we know we can't get to the butcher tonight, but for whatever reason we can't get it hung and skun, or some folks want to take their animal home whole. They just want to show their friends and family whole. before it even gets skinned and quartered. So, we've packed the chest cavities and the necks full of ice before. Keep that hind, or keep them that hind end splayed open. So, heat comes out of it, try to keep those front shoulders spread open. But you really got to watch and be cognizant, because it can hold a lot of heat in up around that neck, especially in the armpits. There's ways to mitigate it, but there is always a little bit of roll of the dice for that. And, meat, elk meat is pretty precious as it is. And we're always very, very upfront with the folks about, hey, look, if this is what we're going to do, you're rolling the dice a little bit here.
Right.
Just be aware, of what might happen. And something might have to be some trimmage. I mean, we've never lost a whole elk. We've never lost a whole animal. There has been on occasion where, you might lose a little bit on the neck or something like that because something wasn't cooled down right. But you do your damnedest not to let it happen again.
And
then, before that even too, when we get out of the woods, we got to go to a check station. I forgot about that. So there's a mandatory elk check station, just like there is with bear. We take you to the elk check station, help you through that process. The biologist is there, along with biologist aide, and there's usually some college kids that are there doing different studies. There's a lot. There's multiple biological samples that the elk team gathers from hunter harvested elk. So hunters play a huge role, in contributing to the biological database, for the Game Commission to continually track and trend, the health of the herd, biologically. So, and then of course after that check station part, then that's when we would get you to the, take care of the process and the butcher stuff like that.
Now at the check station, they're taking that tooth that we had mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And do they take a piece of the brainstem?
Yes. So they are checking for CWD. Now the rub is, if you're going to get your elk mounted, they will not take it there, because what they do is they actually go in through the neck.
Right.
They'll slice right below the jaw, and I forget what the vertebrae is, but they can get right to the obex. That's the sample that they're looking for. If you say, no, I'm not going to mount my cow, I am just going to get the skull cleaned and tan the hide, they'll lay on the back of the tailgate, they'll go in and they'll take their sample right there. Now you got to say you shoot a bull or even a cow. If you want to mount your cow, there's folks that get the cows mounted. Yes, I'm going to get my bull mounted. Okay. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to give you a big styrofoam box that's in a FedEx. It's got a FedEx label and everything on it. And you need to take that along with your elk to your taxidermist. So when you get home and you're going to take your elk to your taxidermist, you give him this big box. Inside this big cooler box, there's instructions, there's ice packs and everything that will explain to the taxidermist how they get this sample. And then, well, I'm sorry, they don't even take the sample. They just put the whole head. Once the antlers are capped off, they put the whole head right in there and follow directions, and it gets shipped back to the Game Commission, where they can then pull their sample.
Yeah.
So CWD is one of the things that they look for. There has to date, and knock on wood, there has not been a positive CWD elk yet. So unfortunately, it's a yet, not a if thing. It's going to happen. There has been CWD positive deer that have been identified adjacent, right close to the elk range and the elk boundaries. Common sense tells you that it's probably here already. It just hasn't showed up in a sample size yet, but it's going to, and then that's gonna be a whole nother thing there to deal with CWD in the elk herd.
I mean, I'm no biologist. I've talked to Jeremy. We had him on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to biologists out in Colorado and Montana. And those elk have been living with it for 75, 80 years. So, I mean, CWD is, to most, they think this is a disease that's just going to wipe everything out.
Yeah.
It's not, so there's no sense in everybody getting in a big panic. I worry more about my deer over on my deer lease getting the blue tongue and
EH,
yeah,
EHD. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
that's what's going to hurt. I mean, I got 6 to 7 years into a deer lease that I have now, and I'm finally taking bucks off of there in the 130s, the 140s, you
Yep.
know, and all these years of
Which
work.
means you got to get age, which
Yeah.
means they got to get up 3, 4, 5 years old. Yeah.
And then all this
Yep.
work, and then just to have some bug come in
Wipe
and
them.
wipe you out, you know.
Yep.
I
Yep. It's
mean,
unfortunate. Yeah.
so
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the CWD thing that is, there's lots of trains of thought down there. I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I hear and see and can definitely understand and
right,
appreciate that side, and at the same time, the biological side of it, and
right.
um, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I just kind of figure I go with what the recommendations are of the biologists at this
Exactly.
point.
That's all we can do is listen to them. I mean, they know better
Yeah.
than anybody.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah.
so now we've harvested, taken care
Mhm.
of. Do we? How do I say it? You stay in touch with those clients afterwards. Like you do become friends with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So I mean, everybody's a little bit different in their place in life, right? So I'm the owner operator of Elk County Outfitters, but I also do guide myself. So I do develop into. I talk to everybody essentially that comes through our door. So they all have some type of contact, with me. But eventually, out of all those, 20, 30 people a year, I'm going to physically hunt and be directly involved with a couple of those guys, or those hunters, for their experience. So, and me, I'm kind of a pretty sociable, kind of friendly kind of guy. I like to definitely develop those relationships, and I stay friendly with a lot of my past clients myself, and even other hunters that have hunted with us but not necessarily in the field with me. I encourage all my guys, the same thing. Stay in touch with them. Those are the best references too. I mean, when you can still, when you're still friends and friendly with folks. We've had folks that have literally become best friends too. After elk hunts, go on vacations together, buy property together. Business stuff. Excuse me. I mean, it definitely does happen. It's not like slam the door and send you down the driveway and never going to see you again type
Right.
thing. But I mean, there's life too. I mean, some guys they're just busy. They don't always necessarily have it in them to continue to continue on. Just other things pop up in life in general.
Well, buddy, we're pushing almost an hour and a half now.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would like to add. So
Go.
so just a real quick.
I'm
This
letting you
is
know the
well.
time
I'll
limit
I'll do it as quickly
so
as I
we
can.
can. No.
So we
There's
talked earlier about the application process, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah. 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 Well, there's some big changes coming, right? So this year, applying right now, 2025, everything is status quo. It's the same that it's always been, right? Starting next year, 2026, elk applicants are going to be required to purchase a Pennsylvania hunting license before they even apply.
Okay.
So, guys like me and you, and probably 90% of your audience that are already Pennsylvania residents, that's not really going to affect anything. The non-residents that have applied for Pennsylvania elk in the past, they're now going to be required to buy a non-resident general license before they can even apply. Previously, they could just apply, and then holy shit, they get lucky. Then they buy the general hunting license, right?
Yeah.
So this is starting in 2026. You're now going to have to buy a license to even apply, right? Um, the Game Commission is instituting a 10% per sex per season maximum cap on non-residents. So what that essentially means is, so currently right now, there is no cap on the non-resident allocation. So theoretically, every single elk tag could be awarded to a non-resident.
Okay.
Statistically, that would never happen. but theoretically it could. There's no stops in place. So what the Game Commission is doing for 2026, there's going to be a 10% per sex per season maximum non-resident allocation. So that's not a guarantee that 10% of the tags will go to a non-resident. It's just a cannot exceed 10%. So let's just say, for example, there's 20 archery bull tags. Only 2 of those maximum could be awarded to a non-resident.
Okay.
All right. Let's say, and there's no rounding up on that. So we just use 20 and 2 as the example. Let's say there's 17 allocated archery bull tags. There will only be 1 non-resident archery bull tag awarded. They will not round up to that next even number to allocate another non-resident tag. And then conversely, the same with elk tags. Say there's 40 cow tags in the general season. There's a maximum of 4 that will be able to be awarded to non-residents. So it's a 10% per sex per season maximum non-resident award. Another thing that they're doing is they are changing the Game Commission. They're instituting a one and done policy on bull tags. So starting in 2026, anybody that draws a bull tag for any of the 3 seasons, doesn't matter if it's archery, general, or late, you draw one time, you're done for life. For a bull tag, you'll still be eligible for a cow tag after that, and that's whatever remaining bonus points you would have, would only be applicable to a cow tag. Everybody that has drawn a bull previous, so everybody that draws a tag this year, still coming up in August or in July when they draw, and everybody prior, all the way back to 2001, those folks will be grandfathered in essentially and still eligible to continue applying for a bull. Now, should they get drawn a second time, then they're done. Then that would be their second allocation, and that would be it, because now they're into the new one and done window. So that's a new big change. And then something that hasn't these are official. So back in April, the Game Commission held their seasons and bag limits meeting, and all this had previously been proposed, and it was voted on and approved back here a couple weeks ago earlier in April. Next year, 2026, it also looks like there's going to be a revamp and a redraw of the elk hunt zone boundaries. So all the elk hunt zones, as you and I know them right now, will no longer exist. They're going to be different shapes, different boundaries. They're going to be labeled different. So that's by design. So the Game Commission operates off of an elk management plan, and I believe it's every 5 years. The elk management plan calls for the biologists to relook at the elk zone boundaries and the permit allocations, just to take into effect and consideration any population trends or changes, habitat usage differences. So if you follow PA elk much, we've had this current zone configuration for quite a while. It's been much longer than 5 years.
Yeah.
But recently, the elk biologist had Jeremy. He had made an effort to kind of step back and reevaluate, look at collar data, look at hunter information, look at feedback from the general public, from wardens, other Game Commission employees, and he has come to the determination that he is going to change the elk zone boundaries. So just kind of as a little bit of a heads up there to everybody, everything is the same for right now. As we're applying right now for the 2025 season, everything's the same as it had always been. Next year, 2026, you're going to go to apply, and everything's going to look totally different. So it's my understanding. So now we deal with a numbering system for the zones. Next year's going to be a lettering system. Okay. So that should be an instant all stop for anybody that wait a minute, these were supposed to be numbers. We picked numbers. Now we got to pick letters. Wait a minute, what's different here? Then you drop back and look, oh crap, this map is totally different.
Okay.
This looks totally different. So that's just kind of that's something that I'm expecting to see for next year, 2026, which will be that'll be a pretty significant change because we've all kind of grown accustomed and used to the zone boundaries how they are now.
Right.
I've seen Jeremy's proposed map of what it's going to look like, or what he thinks it's going to look like. It's still up for adjustment and editing, and he does engage the ELK outfitters and the guides for some feedback as well. Along with PGC personnel and that sort of thing. So we do have input. I don't know how much the input actually filters into the changes that are made. I don't know, but he does solicit some input from us. Things are going to look way different. It looks like we're shrinking. So currently we have 14 elk zones. I think we're going to shrink down to 8 or 9, something like that. Boundaries are totally different, which means allocations are going to be totally different. Overall allocation number wise will probably be pretty close to the same, but obviously there's going to be more tags in fewer zones. So that's kind of just a general awareness. Put that in the little back of your head somewhere. Next year, 2026, that's when that's going to change. And what we ought to do again is we should just put it on our calendar, make it a point now to around this time or even a little bit earlier next year, rehash this. And at that point, we should have some type of concrete maps that are out there, and that we can let folks know and see and share. So it's an active time right now in the PA elk world. A lot of changes just went through. There's some more changes on the horizon, so it's kind of a busy time.
What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get up there in July.
For here coming up in July?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the Elk Expo?
Yeah, get up there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hook up with you guys, and Jeremy's invited me up.
Yep.
I'd like
we set up a booth there, so we're on the vendor list there at the Elk Expo. It's a pretty big event. It's a 2-day event, lots and lots of local artisans and vendors, and there's painters, and there's chainsaw carvers, and there's maple syrup folks, and French fry booths, gun raffles everywhere. It's a pretty neat event, and we set up there. We've been set up there since the beginning. We set up a booth. We have some elk heads that go with us. We have our information stuff out there, and then of course Saturday's the big day, is the drawing, and it's usually busy after that.
But how can everybody get a hold of you, follow you on social media and stuff like that?
Yep. So, we have a regular website, elkcountyoutfitters@gmail.com. Facebook, Instagram, I'm very active on that. Admittedly, I don't know why. I just my Instagram, the Elk County Out, and we're as Elk County Outfitters on both Facebook and Instagram. I just have a little bit of a block for some reason when it comes to the Instagram side. I post way more on our Facebook page, and I just got to kick myself in the butt sometimes. Like, I got to share this over here as well. I try to stay very active on that. We do hunt recaps, so anybody that would wonder how our hunts go down, you can scroll back through on our Facebook page and you can find multiple years worth of hunt recaps. So kind of little short stories, from the guide's perspectives, from the hunter's perspective, share pictures, that sort of thing. I always try to give application reminders and updates on there to folks. Just kind of share happenings, local to the elk range and things pertinent to the area. and just try to keep it an active and engaged social media presence. So yeah, I mean, those two things, Facebook, Instagram, and then Elk County Outfitters at gmail.com. I'm at Bryan Hale, 717-439-5795. That's my cell number. It's listed there on all our stuff as well. I'm an elk nut. I like to talk elk pretty much anytime and all the time. Just ask my wife. She'll roll her eyes a little bit, but usually smack me upside the head sometimes. When I run a little bit long. I can run a little bit long with the tooth. I've never been accused of being a quick storyteller. I know that.
Well, hey, Bryan, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hang out for a minute while I play my sponsors list,
problem.
and then we will finish this up. We're going to...
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. Hey, good luck. Let's see you in July.
All right, well, hang out, buddy. Don't go nowhere.
All right. Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Keystone Experience. Take time to check out these fine sponsors that make this show possible. Apparition Scent, Chico Outdoors Incorporated, Back 40 Seed Company, Gearhead Archery, Forget Genetics, Trapline Beard Oil, Weeby Knives, Wreck Broadheads, Coon Creek Trappers, Wilson's Wildlife Solutions Baits and Lures, Redline Bow Hunting, Rack and Stick, Scout Tech, XL Construction and Renovations LLC, Warhead Arrow Company, Freaky Frank's Tackle, Black River Shot Company, Coyote Cords. Check us out on Carbon TV and the Outdoor Call Radio app. Also follow along on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Watch us on YouTube.